KPISA students, you are welcome once again to another topic in CRP 303, Principles of Crop Protection, and we are yet talking pests and diseases. This is the fourth series, this is the fourth topic in the series, and we'll be talking on the important insect pests of root and tubers. Root and tubers that you know are very important to us, and we want to know the important pests of these root and tubers. The first one we'll be talking about is the variegated grasshopper. We will also be talking about cassava bug, and we'll be talking about some more. So stay tuned and join me as we go on. Thank you very much. God bless. So, like I said in my introductory slide, this is the fourth topic of CRP 303 Principles of Crop Protection, and I still remain your facilitator, Alawudi Tunde. My email has not changed. yalawudi@noun.edu.ng. The first pest we'll be looking at of root and tubers is the cassava variegated leafhopper, and its botanical name is Zonopterus variegatus. Occasionally, a severe pest of cassava that can cause complete deformation. What this leafhopper does is that they go for any green part of the plant, which is usually the leaves. So they cause complete deformation, and damage occurs between November and March. That is during the dry season here in Nigeria, because that is when this swarm of locusts normally come in. And when they don't see cassava, they have alternative foods, which include cocoa, coffee, sweet potato, millet, and most vegetables and cotton. So they go for the green part, and then the cause of complete deformation of these crops. The cassava variegated leafhopper, they destroy the leaves, like I said, and it's usually the males and the adults that do this. They also feed on the green stems by stripping the bark and leaving the plant bare. And when the plant is bare like that, it is prone to diseases and all manner of disease and pest attack, and their feeding can kill plants and reduce yield in older plants. Yes, when there's complete defoliation, then photosynthesis cannot take place. Also, the plant cannot get the stem cannot supply uh, water or nutrients to the leaves, and eventually the complete plant just dies off. So it kills the plant and reduce yield in older plants. How is this cassava variegated leafhopper controlled? There are two ways. If you want to use the non-chemical control, what you do is that, because these grasshoppers normally lay their eggs, they dig up the soil, and then they lay their eggs there. So what you do is to dig up the eggs and allow them to dry out and die. When the eggs are exposed to the surface of the soil, then the sun um, hits the shells of the eggs, and they will just dry out and die. So this must be done over a large area to be effective, because you cannot do it in just one point, wherever or the other point on the field. So it must be done over a large area, and also flooding of these egg sites will also kill the eggs. Flooding just simply means introducing water at a very high speed and a large quantity of water, so that the eggs will not be able to breathe, and then they won't be able to survive. Migration of grasshoppers into the crops can also be prevented by planting physical barriers such as trees round the field. So what you do is that you are protecting your field by planting other crops around it. So when these grasshoppers come, instead of them to focus on your field, which is the cassava, they go for the plants that are around it. So you can plant physical barriers like trees around your field, so that it does attack those ones, and then your cassava field is safe. Also, if you want to do the control chemically, you can introduce insecticides such as dimetanoate on the young leaves, and this is usually sprayed in November and December. Also, you can beat these leaves and these leafhoppers with wheat bran or other cereals. You mix them with milk, which is a purple dust. So when you do that, you now put it in between the rows. So this will attract the weeds, so they go for that instead of attacking the cassava stem. So that's how you control the cassava variegated leafhopper, both the chemical way and the non-chemical method. Another pest we'll be looking at here is the cassava mealybug, and it's usually a very severe dry season tuber pest and can cause losses of up to 75%. So you see how very, very severe it can be. Alternatively, if this pest does not see cassava, they go for hosts like the sweet potato, the eggplant, and the tomato. So these are alternative hosts of this pest. And what these cassava mealybugs do is that they initially feed on the young apical shoots of the cassava. So the young shoots that are coming up in between. That is what these um, cassava mealybugs feed on. So eventually they kill the heart of the plant. That is why they must be controlled early. This is a picture of what this cassava mealybug looks like. They're usually very, very small. This one has to be magnified so I will be able to see clearly. And when they now feed on the shoots, they inject toxic saliva, which causes the formation of the growing tissue and also makes the plants to be stunted. So as the new leaves on the shoots die, the infestation spreads to the older parts of the plant, then down to the stem. And eventually the plant will have this candlestick appearance and then they just die off. So that is what this cassava mealybug does to cassava plants. However, there are two ways by which you can control them. The non-chemical way is by practicing cultural control, and it is usually advisable to plant your cassava at the beginning of the rainy season, and this will allow the plants to quickly grow and be strong before this cassava mealybug are ready to attack. So they make the plants to grow and the plants will be able to have to withstand such attack. And also fertilizer application is usually recommended that you do and you use it at the normal rate to encourage healthy plant growth so that when this cassava mealybug attacks it, it doesn't really have any effect. When the plants are growing healthy, they kind of form an immunity against this cassava mealybug. Also, before you plant your cassava stems or cassava cuttings, you should dip them in hot water, not boiling water, hot water for 25, oh, for 10 minutes, sorry. The hot water shouldn't be more than 25 degrees centigrade, and you dip it inside for 10 minutes to kill any cassava mealybug that is inside the stem. You can also control this pest biologically by introducing another parasite, the Santis, and this is now possible in Nigeria because these parasites are available at IITA, that's the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture in Ibadan. And what you do is that you introduce these local enemies to the cassava mealybug so they feed on them without destroying the cassava plant. So that's another way by which you can control this menace. And for the chemical control, you have to dip your cuttings in dimethanoate solution for 1 minute to kill any larvae that may be present in the cassava stem. So that is how you control your cassava mealybug. Any of these control methods will be very, very effective. Also, other important pests. of cassava are the cassava white fly, that's the pernicious disease, and they are the transmitters of the African cassava mosaic virus, which causes 20 to 60% yield loss cassava. So this white fly is a carrier of this disease, and once this is what they look like in this picture here, and once they attack the top, they inject this virus to the cassava plant, and at the end of the day, you get very little or no cassava tuber. Also, another important pest is the cassava green spider mite, and this also causes 15 to 80% yield loss in cassava plants. So, as a past activity, I would like you to visit any crop farm and collect as many insect pests as possible, and I would like you to identify them by indicating their common and botanical names. I would like to see pictures of these insects on our discussion forum, and you can also send them to my email. Now, I would like to talk about other pests of cereals, because when we started with this pest, we started with pests of cereal, but I mentioned just 5 of them. So I just thought maybe I should just mention more so that you'll be able to know the kind of pests that you are looking out for in your cereal. And the first pest we'll be talking about here is the millet head miner, and this is a serious pest of the millet in the dry Sudan and Sahelian savanna zones of Nigeria. And this pest can cause 20 to 50% crop loss. So it is very serious and should be taken care of. And what this pest does that is the larvae that is usually destructive, and they feed inside the millet head. Like you can see in this picture here, look at this larvae right inside the millet head. So that's where they feed. They feed on the heads of the flowers and the developing grain. So at the end of the day, you may not even get any grain on the millet plant. And damage is usually seen as characteristic tracks over the millet head. You can see, like in the picture here, as the larvae feed from the bottom to the top. They feed from the bottom to the borehole right in between, from the bottom to the top of this millet plant. How can it be controlled? The non-chemical method of control is late planting of early maturing millet varieties. Okay, so what you do is that you plant late. You plant it very late, and what you plant is the early maturing millet variety. So you want a millet variety that matures early, okay, to reduce this infestation. And the varieties with the best resistance also are the ones that have compact heads. There are some millet types that have compact heads and closed panicles. So this millet type variety is usually very difficult for this larvae to penetrate. So you can control it chemically once you see the economic threshold of 2 larvae. So once you go around your field, you see the first larvae, you see the second one, you don't have to wait to see the third one before you treat, and you have to use your cypermetry and carbonyl at 50% head emergence. So when the head of the millet has emerged 50%, then you can now spray, and you spray again 1 week later to give you the best result. So we'll be talking about another um, cereal pest, another pest of sorghum here, which is the sorghum bicolor fruit fly. You can see it in this picture here. It also feeds on the heart of the plant. Okay, and it is prominent. It is usually prominent in the grassland areas of Nigeria. And what this larvae do is that they crawl into the funnel that is between the outer leaves and the new curled leaves. You know how sorghum grows in their leaves curl around the stem. So it grows, the larva crawls into the funnel in between, like you can see in this picture here, and they feed around the wall, severing the growth point. So they give this plant the typical dead heart syndrome. They feed on the heart of the crop. So it is a very, very severe pest. And once the heart of the crop is destroyed, you can smell this very terrible odor, okay, and you know that they are dead. So the young whitish yellow maggots feed on the decaying tissue, okay. So when they cause the heart of the plant to die and it starts to emit a terrible odor, that is what they feed on, the decaying part. So that's where the maggot comes in, and then they feed on the tissue for 1 month and practically kill the plant. And it can also be controlled, and you can control non-chemically by using the high yielding resistant varieties of the plant. And you also plant early, like at the start of the rainy season. That's when you plant the resistant varieties. And you do this, when you do this, you reduce the likelihood of infestation, and then you also cut back the wild sorghum types, because these are the alternative host for the pest. So you do not use the wild sorghum type, you use the resistant varieties. Also, you can control chemically by using cypermetry. That is effective, and you spray it 24 days 28 days, I beg your pardon, after germination, to go a long way for you. Another pest here is the sorghum midge, and it's a major problem in the northern region of Nigeria, because that is usually where most of the cereals come from actually. So it is a problem of the northern region of Nigeria, and usually comes in at the early season, the seedling stage, the early seedling stage of the plant. And what these larvae do is that they feed and destroy the developing seeds of this sorghum plant. So the sorghum head becomes flattened, and then the seeds are shrunken. So you do not have anything in the seed, it's practically empty, because they will just suck all the sap of the seed. So the seeds become flat and shrunken, and the spikelets are empty, and you see it with this red or brown color. Okay, so that is what this sorghum midge does to the sorghum plant. This is what it looks like here in the picture. And you can control this, you know, chemically by planting early. You see why it is important to plant early. And you plant the uniform type of sorghum. You don't plant different varieties of sorghum. You plant uniformly, and you harvest all the sorghum at the same time. So what you're planting is you're planting varieties that have the same planting harvesting date, so that you harvest everything at once. You do not leave some behind on the field and harvest some. That is not good for this pest. So you plant early, and you plant a uniform type of sorghum variety over a large area of land. And the infested or deformed ears should be destroyed. So what you do is that you pull it out. You pull out the deformed ears of sorghum and the infested plants, and then you destroy them by burning. You burn them completely to ashes, or you bury, okay? You bury the larvae. To kill the larvae, you have to bury deep into the soil. And you can control chemically also by applying multiple insecticides, as and you direct these insecticides at the adults, because it's these adults that eventually give birth to the larvae. So you spray the adults to reduce loss in the late planting. If you plant late, you target the adults, so you spray them. And the economic threshold level is 10 adults per panicle. So once you go around your field, you count and then you see that 10 you can see 10 adults on the field, go you spray. And what you spray is the monoculture and dust and phosphalone. These ones are very effective for this the control of this sorghum mate. Another um, pest of cereal is the rice white stem borer, and you can see it in the picture here. It's white in color. The stem borer, so the larvae bores into the stem of the rice, and it is a most important pest of the upland and irrigated rice in Nigeria. So they usually go for the upland variety of rice, and the rice plants are attacked at the full filtering stage. That is when these larvae come in. They come in when the rice has reached their full filtering stage. And what these larvae do is that they penetrate into the stem and then they feed there. They also migrate into the filters of the rice plant. So they penetrate in, feed on the stem, and migrate to the filters. And at the end of the day, the feeding impairs panicle ripening. So what you see at the end of the day, the white heads, the panicle do not ripen because of this larvae. They must have fed on it. So you see white heads. You know what you see is white rice, like very soft white color rice, and also they break the stem. Of course, when they must have fed on the stem will be weak, so they just lodge and then die. So how do you control this white stem borer? Culturally, you use the early maturing varieties, and you plant early before the manifestation of this pest. You know, this larvae has its life cycle also. So what you're doing is that you are just trying to beat nature by planting early, so that by the time the rice is mature, the stem borers will not be able to get into the stem anymore. So you also remove the weeds, which are the alternative host of this particular plant. And when you want to spray, sorry, the economic threshold is actually 2 eggs. When you want to see 2 eggs, you control it. But in this case, the chemical control is very difficult because the pest is inside the stem. So, however, you can apply granular formulation and carbofuran. It can help somehow. So that is how you control this pest. Another pest which is worthy of note here is the African rice gum midge, and it is a sporadic but serious pest affecting lowland rice in Nigeria. So the early and severe manifestation can cause total crop of the loss of the crop, and it also survives on wild grass as its alternative host. So what this um, pest does is that it attacks also at the early filtering stage, and the larvae move up and down until they reach the top, that's the apical side and or lateral buds, to swell and form a ball. So that's why it's called African rice gall. It forms a ball on the rice, and this formulation is often called the onion leaf or silver shoot. So the rice actually tillers, but it does not produce any panicle. That is why it is very, very severe. If you want to control it non-chemically, you avoid damage by planting rice as early as possible before the rain. And then you can also use systemic insecticides to control it chemically, and carbofuran is effective against this particular pest. Another pest is the sugarcane borer, and this is an important pest of sugarcane. And here is what the larvae looks like. The larvae feed on the leaf or the leaf sheath, while older ones bore into the stem of the sugarcane plant, and it causes dead hearts in the young plant. So they bore in the middle and then they kill the plant right from there. So the newly hatched larvae feed on the leaves by boring into the midway, and fully grown larvae also pour into the stem and destroy the plant leaf tissue, causing the dead heart syndrome. You can control it non-chemically by burning every stubble and crop residue. So you burn them or you bury them to prevent the insects from laying eggs on the dead litter. So you bury or burn, you don't leave them on the field. And you can control it chemically by using your carbonyl, which is effective in the early stages of the attack, because the late stages will be almost impossible because they must have eaten the heart of the plant already. So having said that, we have come to the end of this lecture, and I want to thank you for listening. And I also want you to try and mention the disease pest of cereals, mention three, and state how they can be controlled both chemically and non-chemically. So thank you so much for your time.